Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. The dreaded and ominous Tuesday the 13th. Very little known superstition, which, well, what do you think they would say? Oh, yeah, maybe this is the day when if you have promised to pay for a hamburger, bad luck comes to you, I suppose. At any rate, don't promise to pay for a hamburger on Tuesday of any time if you're not, if you're going to consume it earlier than that. I don't know. There's really not much about Tuesdays, culturally speaking, as a signifier that we can latch onto. But Tuesdays are Joan McCarter days. In our own culture, they are celebrated as such. And we'll see whether the excitement of the Tim Walz rollout has subsided and made things easier in the newsroom. I don't know of any spectacular rush to publication on any major news of the day, but, you know, I don't really know very much about the news. We bring Greg in for that, or later on, Joan McCarter. So, okay, well, I do know what people have been chattering about over the past 24 hours or so, and again, I'm struck by how things that were newsy yesterday, but about 11 o'clock in the morning or so, now seem like ancient history. And that's not news anymore. We need to talk about the things that happened closer to 11 p.m. I think most of the discussion, I don't know, if there's any particular topic about which people are buzzing. Yesterday was supposed to be, and I guess they attempted it and they didn't quite get it right, but then they tried again. Donald Trump being interviewed, which is not something you can do, generally speaking. We've been over that. But this time interviewed by Elon Musk, who wouldn't have, you know, I was just going to say, well, he doesn't have the skills to do an interview on, you know, someone at all, anyone. Certainly not someone, you know, running for president. It's a very serious interview. It's not a very serious interview with Donald Trump ever. And I guess it's really, there's no such thing as being qualified for conversation, whether it's an interview or not, with Donald Trump. He's just not going to, you know, give answers to questions if he doesn't feel like it. Whatever. But anyhow, I guess that was supposed to be a friendly forum for him. By the way, we reported it a while ago when he announced that Elon Musk had said, I'm going to give some enormous amount of money, it was like $45 million a month or something, to a Trump super PAC to support his election. And I'm pretty sure when we heard that news, we kind of said, no, he's not. He doesn't deliver these things. So as a matter of fact, as I recall, now I could probably look up the comments on it. I think I made reference to the fact that he had promised ventilators during the early days of COVID. I will find these things. I can source them or I can manufacture them. I'll deliver some X number of thousands of ventilators to hospitals around the country, possibly around the world. And time passed, you know, a critical time where people died without ventilators, you know, not just a regular delay, but a deadly one. And then CPAP machines started showing up in places as the ventilators. These are the ones that I promised. These push air, you know, that's a totally different kind of machine. And so it made me think, well, probably not going to deliver $45 million a month to anybody for any reason. And he's a little bit like Trump in that. He's just not likely to follow through and do the work and part with the money. Anyway, yesterday he set up, I guess, what do they call it on Twitter? Spaces, maybe? A live stream, essentially. A live streamed conversation with Donald Trump via Twitter. And to, you know, no one's surprised, I guess probably most especially Ron DeSantis. Do you remember this? I was reminded of this in the reporting of this event, that Ron DeSantis decided to make his announcement of his running for president. You remember that Ron DeSantis was running for president, right? Meatball Ron. All right. Well, at any rate, he lost in the primaries pretty convincingly early on, but he announced his, you know, the formal start of his race on Twitter. And I don't know whether he did a Spaces thing or not. But anyway, they effed that up pretty good. And there were all sorts of weird technical problems with it. And I guess people said since then, what have we learned since then so that we don't repeat the mistakes? And the answer is Elon Musk is a technical genius and an amazing software engineer. We don't have to learn anything. Everything's going to be just fine because his big brain will fix it if something goes wrong. Well, it didn't. I mean, it did go wrong, and the big brain didn't fix it. Apparently, they're blaming a hacker attack, did they say DDoS? DDOS? I don't know, denial of service attack. Rudimentary, sort of hack, but, Twitter is supposedly built to be relatively resistant to that because, it's a pretty massive system. It's been targeted with that before. Somehow, for some strange reason, under tech genius Elon Musk, they were not prepared for this, or it didn't exist and they had some other technical problem, and they blamed it on hackers. And I guess the start was delayed, or millions of people who were supposedly interested in attending were unable to, gain entrance into the chat room, more or less, however the technical terminology goes. And it was delayed for a while, and then they said, well, we'll just start it over and we'll do it in small groups, and then we'll publish the transcript or whatever. Anyway, it was a disaster, and that's cool. Everyone likes that. There is a write-up of it here somewhere, I think, parked in Pocket. There was an awful lot. And so let's see. There was the basic coverage of it and the idea that it was somehow a cyber attack I have written up over here at CNBC, where they are super into the cyber attack thing, because it was, I don't remember, was C ever supposed to be, I don't know what that was for, but weren't they supposed to be just sort of more like cool and online-y, and then they sort of pivoted to MSNBC? I don't know what the C is for. Maybe cyber. I don't know. At any rate, probably not that. But, oh, look. Some familiar names get the byline here. Well, one familiar name, Christina Wilkie, who shares it with Rebecca Picciotto, maybe, if you're really being serious about the double C's. Anyway, they write up Elon Musk, Donald Trump event on X, that's what they call Twitter now, crashes the site. The Tesla CEO, he's also the ex-CEO. You could just say that. Blames cyber attacks. I don't know. Maybe it's better if we identify him with all of his garbage. Oh, look, they do the bullet points thing, so we don't need to read their article. What a fantastic feature for the writers here. Elon Musk's much-hyped interview of Donald Trump on social media platform X was nearly derailed. It was derailed. And then it was, it limped along. It was nearly derailed early on by technical glitches. Musk blamed the cyber attack, saying there appears to be a massive DDoS attack on. After nearly an hour of troubleshooting, the conversation started in earnest, if that can ever really happen, and went on for another 2 hours. Well, you're not going to escape a freewheeling conversation, as they like to call it euphemistically in the news, with Donald Trump in any less than 2 hours. Is there anything that we really have to dig out of the body of the article? I mean, that's basically it. They were also, of course, bragging that people were so interested in it. Stephen Chung came out with you're breaking the internet. It's so popular that's what's happening here. And they do note Monday's glitches were reminiscent of X's technical disaster in 2023 when botched Republican launch Ron DeSantis, and botched candidate Ron DeSantis had his launch botched during the announcement. This time, the event was billed as a conversation between two of the world's most influential people, something buzzy and potentially news-making that might help revive Trump's campaign. That was supposed to be the aim here. How'd they do? Well, CNBC has told us everything that they can, that I can justify continuing with their article before I jump over to USA Today, today's teen vogue of national newspapers. That is, they've published a piece I guess right up front, I don't know. I haven't seen a print USA Today since I don't know when. Probably staying in a hotel where they used to give them out for free. But they're going, the People magazine, they're waking up. They're not woke, because everybody's against woke. They're waking up to the realities in places like Teen Vogue and People magazine. And I think didn't another fashion magazine, was there a Teen Cosmopolitan or something for a while that was doing the same sort of thing? Anyway, USA Today has it in the way that none of the other papers are willing to put it. And I don't even know if this piece is labeled opinion anywhere. They're so careful about that in the other papers. We can't have this as hard news, but it really should be. We're encouraging them to try. Rex Hupke, I think is how you pronounce the name, is responsible for the piece. Let's say he is responsible for the headline as well. And in fact, there it is, I guess. Now I see up here in the top of the bar here, columnist's opinion. It's definitely labeled opinion, but not in the huge and obvious way that the other papers do it. So it has to be. I mean, it is an opinion piece, but it's the correct opinion. Trump rambles, slurs his way through Elon Musk interview. It was an unmitigated disaster. I didn't listen or watch or any of that kind of stuff. And I haven't even seen any clips. I've seen a couple of print reports about things that he may or may not have said. I don't know. But at any rate, everyone was focusing on the physical delivery of the dialogue, that he was very slurry and people were like loose dentures, drunk, high on something. It wasn't that he was slurry and drawly. It was that he was inarticulate and slurry, but also apparently hyped up and talking really fast. And that he was repeating himself over and over again, telling the same stories over and over again, sometimes with just a few minutes in between, like this show. So what do we have here? Trump rambles and slurs his way through Elon Musk interview. It was an unmitigated disaster, says Rex. For a fascism-curious billionaire, that's, I guess, supposed to be Elon Musk, who loves cuddling up to right-wing loons, which is Donald Trump, Elon Musk sure is good at making right-wing politicians look stupid. Maybe you want to give this hobby up. If you're actually interested in helping them, maybe you're not. For a fascism-curious billionaire who loves cuddling, this is repeating the same thing, which is, of course, in a minute or two what we're going to be accusing Donald Trump of doing. But yes, I don't like that. I think you should come up with your own language for the subheader and then not repeat it. But for a fascism-curious billionaire who loves cuddling up to right-wing loons, Elon Musk sure is good at making right-wing politicians look stupid. Sounds familiar? Just read it a minute ago. Former President Donald Trump has loudly trumpeted a planned Monday night interview with Musk, that's last night, that would stream on X, but much like the disastrous X-platformed launch of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign, the Musk-Trump interview failed to launch, which is bad for a guy who has a space, company, leaving social media users laughing at the collective incompetence. Since Vice President Kamala Harris rose to the top of the Democratic ticket last month, Trump's re-election campaign has been flailing. His childish attacks against her aren't working. His racist comments about her mixed-race heritage have repelled all but his most loyal supporters. His vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance, becomes less likable every time he speaks. And let me break here for a moment. I don't think I put anything away on this one to share, but the growing undercurrent of discussion, whispers, etc., and even occasionally written pieces is that, look, Trump is falling apart. His health has got to be failing him. His mental stability is just not, it's just non-existent. J.D. Vance is essentially on tap for president. Basically, people are beginning to realize, Trump's not going to make it through these 4 years. He might actually live, even without the assistance of machines throughout the next 4 years, but his ability to function as president mentally is on the brink. And so essentially you're looking at a J.D. Vance presidency at some point, and he's weird. And no one likes the idea of handing it over surreptitiously, on the sly to J.D. Vance. And you shouldn't, and you should start worrying about that. And Some people even bringing up the point that, well, the weird, shadowy cabal of vampire billionaires like Peter Thiel, who created this guy and backed him, are looking toward that. That's their aim. That's their idea, backdooring Vance into the presidency and maybe even putting together a cabinet that would agree with a wink and a nod to 25th Amendment the old man out if necessary and let J.D. Vance, the Yiddish bedbug, take over. Okay, well, I'd circulate that rumor. I may just have done that, but it wasn't me that made it up. That's the important point. Okay, so back to USA Today, telling you the story of things that actually happened, right? Trump flailing since Harris rose to the top of the ticket, as they put it. His vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance, becomes less likable every time he speaks. That's pretty true. So his answer, weirdly, was to sit down with Musk and talk to what would undoubtedly be a very online audience. That'll solve your very online vice president problem. That doesn't represent the broader electorate. Had the conversation gone off without a hitch, it would still have been odd and largely useless for Trump's effort to halt Harris's momentum. But guess what? It didn't go off without a hitch. Trump's interview with Elon Musk was an unmitigated disaster. That's like the section head of the part coming up. But the online interview went off the rails with a multitude of hitches. Did it go off without a hitch? No, there were lots of hitches. Ex-users erupted with either frustration or laughter as the planned start time passed and nothing could be accessed. It took more than 40 minutes before the interview could start and be heard by anyone. It was amateur hour, the last thing a campaign struggling to project competence needed, much less that a platform struggling to project that they're still at the cutting edge of technology needed to present. But blowing up two very important presidential campaign events in a row has got to be a black eye for these guys, I would guess. In May of 2023, when DeSantis' presidential campaign premiered with a glitch-tastic interview with Musk on what was then called Twitter, Trump mocked the debacle, writing on social media, "Wow, the DeSanctus," remember DeSanctimonious, "the DeSanctus Twitter launch is a disaster. His whole campaign will be a disaster. Watch. On behalf of DeSantis, allow me to say this. Ha!" Next section, forget the glitches. Trump's ex-interview got worse when he started talking. Of course, things didn't get better for Trump once the interview was able to proceed. Trump said AI did it, apparently. That's a promotion for another piece, I think. Trump says AI did it. This is Trump blaming Harris's crowds on AI. Oh, maybe. So let's assume everything we don't like is fake. I don't know. That sort of fits into the flow of the article, actually, which is why it fooled me. But anyway, Trump was rambling, like me, babbling about crowd sizes and immigration and President Joe Biden and whatever else seemed to pass through his mind, if that's what it was. He was also badly slurring his words, and that's linked, maybe some clips circulating on Twitter, raising questions about his health and doing nothing to knock down rising concerns about his age and well-being. He sounded, this I see being circulated all over the place, he sounded like a disoriented, racist Daffy Duck. Okay. Next up, Elon Musk is no Barbara Walters. His interview skills stink. Well, there was really no reason to believe he had any, but might as well let everybody know that they stink. Musk, meanwhile, has the interviewing skills of a stoned introvert. Well, yeah, I guess he kind of is that. He did little, it's hard to believe or hard to think of him as an introvert, but he's trying to be extroverted. I don't know whether that comes to him naturally or not, or whether he's forcing it, but I guess I guess you could say he is an introvert's version of what they probably would produce if they tried to force themselves to be extroverts. It just doesn't work. Anyway, he did little but cheerlead Trump and agree with every bizarro thing that fell out of his mouth, while occasionally going on the kind of odd right-wing tangents that you'd expect from a man too rich to ever be told to pipe down. It's a pretty good description, I think. I'm not going to quote anything Trump said in the interview because it was either too stupid to merit transcription or a mere repetition of the nonsense he spouts at every rally he holds. That's a good one. A big part of Trump's problem right now is he has become almost unbearably boring. Build a wall. Drill, baby, drill. Marxist, socialist, something, something. Harris only recently became black, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's a pretty good description of it. Musk gave Trump the same gift that he gave Ron DeSantis when he appeared. Womp, womp. Okay, let's see what that's about. So for Trump, sitting down with a rich weirdo few people like and slurring his way through an interview that failed to launch was, in the words of one Donald J. Trump, a disaster. Or if you were asking about how it went, ask Bernie Sanders, he would say, a disaster. And Donald Trump says, disaster. So, same word, just two very different accents. Musk, with his social media ineptness, odd given that he owns a company, an unmerited sense of self-importance, made DeSantis look like a fool, and now he's done the same to Trump. That's the gift. Heck, if Musk keeps this up, I might start to like him, concludes Rex Hupke. Well done. And I think everybody enjoyed it and shared it all over social media. So a big success with his review of things. Is there more about that crazy thing? I don't think so. I mean, I think that kind of covers it in terms of the fact that he did this event, although I do think I may have put aside some other comments. Yes, right. Via Blue Sky, everyone's internet pal, Shar G, Hapkido gal, for both from the olden days in Twitter and now over at Blue Sky, noting in this CNBC report here that the headline being Elon Musk Donald Trump event on X crashes site. Tesla CEO blames cyber attack. We just mentioned it before the Rex Hupke piece. And Shar kind of commenting here, are you sure it wasn't his own campaign, right? Did they say, again, I'm so confused about what DDOS, was there really a denial of service attack on the platform? And if so, was it his own campaign trying to crash the thing before it started because they knew how disastrous it was going to be? Okay. I like it. Points for the comment. Other things to sneak in the first segment. Let's see. It's just been wild out there. There's so many things to cover and no way to get to it all. Why don't we keep it Trump themed for the moment? There's still more, of course, Trump stuff. Yeah, he inserts himself into every story. But another opinion piece that I think deserves a little bit of attention, Eugene Robinson's. It's just good to see it in the Washington Post pages. It's not that the Washington Post has ignored it in the way that the New York Times has, but it's good to see it in print from one of the big players, an opinion piece. Trump's fantasy-based outbursts are getting out of hand, even for him. That's okay. That's something. His newest social media meltdown is flirting with delusion. Which one? Former President Donald Trump's ongoing meltdown over his changed electoral prospects is becoming genuinely bizarre. It is foolish to underestimate him, but this doesn't come off as any kind of subtle gambit in a game of three-dimensional chess. It looks and sounds like angry, disoriented flailing, there's that word again, that inflicts more self-harm than damage on his opponents, which is fine by me. I hope he bleeds out from it and does so soon. Okay, that's not Eugene Robinson, that part. Trump's frustration is not without cause. Recent polls show that Vice President Kamala Harris has erased the lead Trump had over President Joe Biden, and the Real Clear Politics polling average, if we believe that, often more generous to Trump than some other aggregators, on Monday had Harris nosing into the lead. Perhaps more galling, Harris and her running mate, you know who, Tim Walz, it's not Voldemort, have been barnstorming the swing states and drawing the kind of huge enthusiastic crowds that Trump boasted he alone could muster. And, of course,
enthusiasms.
Right. That is at the root of everything. That might be the reason for Trump's transparently false and really strange Truth Social post on Sunday that claimed that there was nobody there at the rally that Harris and Walz held last week at Detroit's airport. In fact, as documented by news photographers and television crews, an estimated 15,000 supporters greeted and cheered the Democratic candidates. A crowd that size is hard to miss. though the Washington Post missed 1 million people marching against the Iraq War, so, it's possible. Right-wing conspiracy theorists had posted a photograph of one of Air Force Two's shiny engines, claiming that a dim reflection showed there was no crowd at all when Harris and Walz arrived, and the images of the event were created by artificial intelligence, which you don't really need for this. This kind of paranoid, fantasy-based nonsense gets put out there all the time by unscrupulous provocateurs for whom lying is a business model, but I know where you're going with this, but come on, Eugene. But it was unusual that Trump would expose himself. Even that's not unusual. By endorsing a lie that lacked even the slightest whiff of plausibility. Now, come on, Eugene. This kind of fantasy-based nonsense does get put out there all the time by unscrupulous provocateurs for whom lying is a business model. Because that's Trump. In a word, in a sentence, in a nutshell. I mean, what part of paranoid fantasy-based nonsense put out by unscrupulous provocateurs for whom lying is a business model doesn't apply here? Are you really thinking that that's, a different corner of the world and Trump just plays along with them? All right, well, I don't want to get too down on Eugene here for this, but that followed a post last week that laid out an unhinged predictive scenario. Biden, angry that his, quote, presidency was unconstitutionally stolen by Harris, somehow crashes the Democrat National Convention, notice Democrat, and tries to take back the nomination. Not a thing that can happen, not a thing that anybody would be interested in having happen, but that's the scenario. Other recent Trump posts have been more like the falsehoods and distortions we're accustomed to. He maintained that he's doing really well in the presidential race, leading in almost all the real polls. Apparently any poll that finds him not doing well, such as New York Times surveys, etc., are by definition not real. He also posted that 3 debates with Harris are scheduled, though both campaigns have agreed to only one. That is kind of par for the course. Hi everybody, it's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and patreon.com, patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, now, welcome back, if you will, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Let's see, trying to get prepared for our later segment with Joan. Just want to make sure that I have the latest diaries open. But we were in the middle of reading Eugene Robinson's piece in the Washington Post, which I think we can, no disrespect meant, but we'll skip most of the rest of it. But there was another interesting turn of phrase here. He was saying that away from social media, Trump's public statements have become increasingly divorced from reality. And it's hard to get divorced more often than Donald Trump, but it is possible, I suppose, if you're divorcing reality. You have the opportunity every day. And yes, I know, he says, that's saying a lot. At a rally Friday in Montana, which honestly, having a rally in Montana at this stage of the game is being divorced from reality in its own right. But Trump said the following. This I can't even follow. Kamala Harris, it's interesting. Nobody really knows her last name. If you ask people, do you know what her last name is? Nobody has any idea what it is. Harris. It's like Harris. I don't know. How the hell did this happen? What? I don't even know what to make of this, right? I mean, I guess if Donald Trump or anybody else came to me and said, you know something? You know what's really interesting? Kamala, what's her last name? You won't believe this. Tell me. Go ahead. Tell me. What's her last name? I'd be like, this must be a trick question. I don't know. I don't know. What is her last name? It's Harris. Well, I was going to say it's Kamala Harris because everybody knows it's Kamala Harris, but you made it sound like it was a trick question. You had discovered that her real last name was something else and you were going to reveal it to me. Well, tell me, what's Kamala's last name? Harris. No, wrong. Everybody thinks, but what do you mean? And also, how the hell did this happen? From her dad? The way it happens in, the vast majority of the English-speaking world is we've kind of adopted that convention. I mean, Eugene Robinson lays out all the facts. She got her name from her father, Donald J. Harris. Everyone thinks that's funny. A retired Stanford University economics professor. MIT, my uncle, very smart. Surely Trump knows, I don't know how sure it is. Was he obliquely returning to his laughable contention that the vice president whose mother was South Asian is somehow not authentically black? Even though her Jamaican-born father is a black man whose ancestors were enslaved Africans? Or is Trump really puzzling over some mystery that exists only within the confines of his overheated imagination? That could really be true. Or he says maybe it's sometimes he forgets. This is clearly the case with the helicopter story. We all know the confusion. Willie Brown, maybe Jerry Brown, but maybe it was just another black face and he didn't understand who it was or remember. We now know it was Nate Holden. And, whatever. Anyway, Trump has not yet budged from his version of the helicopter story. That's pretty interesting. And remember, this is the guy who preferred to insist, he's done this a million times, right? Especially with names of people. I think I keep hearkening back to there was a moment on the campaign trail, and I don't even remember which campaign it was, 2016 or 2020, or maybe it was in between. Maybe it was during his presidency and he had an event and somebody there was, a guy who went by the initials, like J.D. Vance, but it wasn't him. But this guy was DJ or something like that, but he said, so he called him CJ. CJ, a very interesting guy. I just met him backstage. He's from around here, whatever. I don't know. So CJ or DJ, someone yells out DJ or DJ. CJ, he actually told me I could call him either one. Like, no one ever says that. That was one of the most astonishing lies I've ever seen. It was the least consequential, but just one of the most astonishing. That guy just said his name was DJ. And when you called him CJ, somebody shouted out DJ. Oh, he told me I could call him either one. Now, if that were true, first of all, no one. My name is David, but you can call me Calvin if you want to. Why? Is that your middle name? No. But if you want to, you can call me Cornelius. You can call me anything you want. But no one ever really does that. And secondly, come on. Why would anybody call anything out? If I had already told you that you could call me CJ, why would I say DJ? It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, he also, don't forget, perhaps even more outrageously, insisted that Covfefe was a thing when he, butt dialed something on Twitter and mangled something. No, that was a real thing. And people just joined in. Yes, we're going to make Covfefe as a word. Anyway, so no surprise that he is not budged from this version of the helicopter story. He's going to sue people over it, as a matter of fact. I will just note that when someone becomes confused and agitated, Eugene concludes, it is a blessing to suggest it might be time for a nap. Yes, a permanent nap would be a great idea at this point, and I mean it. Just napping. You don't have to check out. Just saying, stay asleep and don't bother us anymore, and have a great time. We wish you well. All right. So, yes, that's a lot of Donald Trump news. There's more. I have to bring up one more thing here. Maybe one of the scarier prospects I have seen raised of late. But Trump is, you're never going to believe this, he's going to sue somebody. And it's not, this is different from I'm going to sue you over the helicopter story, which is kind of crazy at this point. But now he's going to sue the Department of Justice. So let me start with this Mediaite report about that, so we can give you the background, and then we'll get to the commentary on it, which is also very interesting and a little bit scary. And here, early warning on something really concerning. Trump to sue DOJ for $100 million. Why? Claiming political persecution over the 2022 Mar-a-Lago raid. David Gilmour reports for Mediaite. This is not something ordinarily you would think of anybody, even Donald Trump, suing over. But here it is. Former President Donald Trump plans to sue the Department of Justice for $100 million, claiming the FBI's 2022 raid, which wasn't even a raid, on his Mar-a-Lago estate, which is a sex dungeon and probably deserved a raid but didn't get it. It was all prearranged. And remember that the agents dressed differently so as to call less attention to themselves. They got advance notice of exactly what they were coming to get. They arranged the whole thing with their lawyers. They waited until Trump wasn't there. I mean, he could have been, why not put him face down on the ground with a gun to his head while you search? That's a raid. But anyway, I digress. During the raid, again, he keeps, it's not a raid, but he keeps saying it is because it makes it sound worse. During the raid, federal agents discovered, you may have heard about this, over 100 classified records as they executed a search warrant at Trump's Palm Beach property. Trump denied the 40 criminal counts related to his handling of the documents, and the prosecutor claims he actively obstructed the government's attempts to retrieve the materials, several times, in fact, including those related to nuclear secrets and national defense capabilities. No problems there. Trump's legal team argues that the raid was executed, quote, with, quote, clear intent to engage in political persecution, not because they found hundreds of classified documents, according to a memo obtained by Fox News reporter Brooke Singman. Now, the lawsuit, led by Trump attorney Daniel Epstein, not at all related to Jeffrey Epstein, just saying, alleges that the DOJ's actions constituted tortious conduct against the former president, citing intrusion upon seclusion. And where is Trump more secluded than fabulous Mar-a-Lago estate, which I'm inviting everyone, including Chinese spies, to come join us for the buffet. There's nothing secluded about the place. He's constantly bringing press there. Malicious prosecution and abuse of process. Those are the claims here. Epstein argues that the decisions made by Attorney General Merrick Garland, Mr. Careful, right, and FBI Director Christopher Wray, were inconsistent with protocols and driven by an agenda to, quote, injure President Trump. That's a great agenda, but I don't know if that's the one they had. Epstein's filing also argues the FBI's conduct in the raid constitutes a severe and unacceptable intrusion that is highly offensive to a reasonable person who wasn't there. First of all, there are no reasonable people in Mar-a-Lago. Second of all, again, they waited until he and the family were gone. They did everything they could to tamp down on the flashy nature of the thing. They even changed their wardrobe in accommodation of him. The DOJ has 180 days to respond to Epstein's notice before the case moves to federal court. Epstein further claims that the raid and subsequent indictments were part of a broader scheme to interfere with Trump's political ambitions, describing it as, quote, very accurate and precise election interference. Sort of a surgical strike of election interference in 2022. Still years before his announcement of his re-election campaign. But, you know, you don't even really need to depend on that for the basis to say, that's dumb. No, get the hell out of here. Well, somebody made an interesting observation of this that worries me a great deal, and I think I parked it here. Let's click through the link via Pocket and see if it's correctly attributed. Yes, from Birdland Dad on Blue Sky, who proposes this question in speaking to Pope Hat, Ken White. If a person any person, let's say a person who is running for president, like Donald Trump, if a person sues the DOJ for monetary damages and then becomes president, can they order the DOJ to settle the suit, and to pay to settle the suit? What limits are there on the size of a settlement before the DOJ would need to get congressional approval? I don't know if I've ever seen them have to get congressional approval for a settlement, but I guess it's possible if it, or someone might ask for it if it reaches a certain number. But the more important part there is, we all know that Donald Trump, his whole hope here is to win the presidency and either pardon himself, or he probably would want to go the route of, power play. I order the DOJ to drop the charges against me. But this is a new thing, like in a civil lawsuit. Is this just, as I put it in response, is this just a license to print money? Is this Donald Trump, you just sue as a private individual while you're president. I guess you could try that. I'm going to sue any agency, right? And then the DOJ does, provide the defense for the agency. The agency has its own general counsel, et cetera, but they turn to the DOJ with help for defense in this. But can you just then order the DOJ to settle? And then, at that point, why not sue for $1 trillion and order the DOJ to settle? And can you order the DOJ, to take a certain position in the settlement? We insist on paying the full amount sued for here. We don't want to seek a compromise. Or if you think you're going to seek a compromise, all right, well, I'm going to sue for $2 trillion and settle for $1. Can you play both parts here? I'm both plaintiff and defense, and just order yourself paid. This is a pretty close cousin to the idea of, well, I'm the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Fort Knox is a military installation. I hereby order the military to turn over America's gold bullion reserves to me, for not even for safekeeping, just for me. At Mar-a-Lago, please put them all in the basement of Mar-a-Lago if there is one, or rebuild the ballroom out of gold bricks, whatever it is. I just hereby order the military to let me take this stuff. Well, I can't do that. That's crazy. That's theft. I order it, and I'm the commander-in-chief. Yes, sir. I guess it doesn't say anything in here about a dog playing basketball or the president emptying the gold vaults. Can you do it? I think the gold brick thing is probably a little more far-fetched, but then why stop? Why not try that? Why not go ahead? I don't want to give him any ideas, but he's probably had those ideas. He loves golden things. But what about the idea of ordering the DOJ to settle? That's an incredible threat. And are we supposed to count on the Supreme Court saying, no, hold on a second. That's the limits of presidential power. That's not going to happen. I imagine certainly 3 justices would say no. 1 justice would say for 10% of the take, I'll let you do it. Maybe 2 justices would vote for that. Maybe one of the justices has an upside-down Fort Knox flag flying outside of his house. I don't know. We think that the gold should be outside of Fort Knox, the opposite of where it is now. And the Constitution says so, too. But you can't count on the Supreme Court to step in and say, oh, man, well, this is just one of those limitations of executive power that we forgot to talk about, or that we hinted might exist, and now we've seen it. Or might they just say, darn it, we really painted ourselves into a corner here. Phooey. I can't believe it. Oh, well, law's the law. I don't know. They wrote about it a little bit at Above the Law. Liz Dye takes on the topic of the suit. I'm curious whether she's contemplating the complications of settlement. Donald Trump will sue the DOJ for, quote, illegal raid pursuant to judicially authorized warrant. It's one of the problems of it. But as she puts it, I'm a little worried about this. It's hilarious unless he gets back in the White House, in which case it's very scary. Donald Trump is going to sue the federal government. That's his plan anyway. We don't know whether he's going to follow through. For the Mar-a-Lago raid and subsequent prosecution for stolen documents. which, by the way, he's seeking to have dismissed. And were it dismissed in court, I can't guarantee you that he drops his suit either. Well, I was bothered by the other stuff that they did even before I got him to drop the suit. And I mean, drop the suit not because he orders them, but drop the suit because the Supreme Court has decided he's immune from everything, which is equally stupid. So here we go. Anyway, Trump is going to sue. He wants $100 million. And if you think this can't possibly get any stupider, imagine what will happen if that lunatic actually wins the election and orders the Justice Department to pay up. R.I.P. to the remnants of law Twitter, she says, and pointing to somebody else's commentary, I guess, on the same subject. Robert Black, quoting the Birdland Dad just thing, saying, oh hell. Right. Well, anyway, okay, so back to the story. For Fox Business reported the impending suit yesterday, on Mornings with Maria Bartiromo, briefly interviewing Trump's lawyer, Daniel Epstein, not Jeffrey Epstein, but only briefly, since he looks like someone you'd cover your drink around, an Epstein. So watch out for that. Epstein began his legal career at the Koch Foundation, believe it or not, and continued to advocate against the demon scourge of federal regulation. He served various roles in the Trump administration and was nominated first to the U.S. Court of Federal Claims and then to be chairman of the Administrative Conference of the United States. The Senate ignored both nominations, leaving this sweaty dork free to launch nuisance suits in his civilian capacity, according to Epstein, who just happens to be named Epstein. Trump informed the Justice Department of his intent to sue for tortious acts against the president are rooted in intrusion on seclusion, malicious prosecution, and abusive process resulting from the August 8th, 2022 raid of his and his family's and his sex slave gimpy dungeon denizens' home at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida. The lawyer says the claims rest on the DOJ's violation of its own internal policies, which, of course, Trump in court argues are non-binding and can be changed at the order of the president anytime, any place, anywhere, anyway. So whatever. Garland and Wray decided to stray, good rhyme, from established protocol to injure President Trump, as is their right, according to the Supreme Court, by the way. He huffed, claiming this demonstrates clear intent to engage in political persecution, not to advance good law enforcement practices. Now, here on planet Earth, it says, the department's Justice Manual very clearly states that violation of internal protocols provides no right of private action, which is, of course, what this is, private action. Do you have any right to that? No, you don't. It provides no right of private action. But, of course, the rule book has been thrown out, so F it. The Justice Manual provides internal DOJ guidance. It states it is not intended to, does not, and may not be relied upon to create any rights, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law by any party in any matter, civil or criminal. But that's just if you follow the rules. And remember, Bush v. Gore, not valid precedent, but cited all the time. And oh man, shoot, we knew we weren't going to get away with that one. There's also the minor matter that the raid was conducted, and it wasn't a raid, pursuant to a judicially authorized and legally executed warrant. But F all of that. I guess Epstein's got his talking points and he's sticking to them. Garland and Wray should never have approved, or should have never approved, a raid and subsequent indictment of President Trump because of the well-established protocol with former U.S. presidents is to use non-enforcement means to obtain records of the United States. They tried that for several months, got no satisfaction. This, he wrote in the notice of intent to sue, according to Fox. Also, Judge Cannon, with an assist from Justice Thomas, has decreed that special counsels are illegal. So there was no constitutional basis for the search or the subsequent indictment. Smith was appointed 2 months after the raid, but that's hardly the issue here. Under 28 U.S. Code Section 2675, the government has 6 months to respond to the demand for the $100 million settlement, which includes a reported $15 million in actual damages, plus punitive damages, which are expressly barred under the Federal Tort Claims Act, because Daniel Epstein has an active fantasy life. But he got to go on Fox, so win-win-win. All right. So, yeah, a couple of extra points there in that. Well, one, this says that the government has 6 months to respond. The previous report that we saw, I think, had it at 90 days, about half that time. So I'm not sure which one is which. But, again, $15 million he claims in actual damages. To what? I don't know. The bathroom where they found all the papers. And but the rest of it, $100 million minus the $15 million in supposed actual damages, is punitive damages, which, again, the Federal Tort Claims Act, which governs, these things, tort claims against the United States, says no punitive damages against the federal government. Sorry, it's against the law. But why not ask for them anyway and see if you can win the presidential election and order the government to ignore the Federal Tort Claims Act and give you money? It really would be just a license to print money. So, that's looming out there. We really can't have Donald Trump in charge of anything, much less the decision of whether or not the DOJ should surrender every time he sues them. I mean, if you run out of money, sue the government in order the DOJ to settle. That just can't be right, can it? All right, let's see. Moving on to a couple of other things. How about a few minutes spent on this in this segment and the next? Last week, we finished up with Florida in disarray, with Meatball Ron and Chris Rufo screwing things up royally. But we didn't get to all of the news we have about that, nor did we get to the plunder portion of our program. But I got to scroll a little ways back to try and find the Florida piece that I did. Oh, yes, here it is. This one I didn't remember that. I had this inkling that it was sitting out there somewhere, and I couldn't find it in my hurried scrolling to include last Friday. But this, a piece from Inside Higher Ed, which I think we mentioned, one of the other stories that we did read cited Inside Higher Ed for something, but not, I don't think, for this piece. A big chunk of professors, it says, flunked the University of Florida's post-tenure review process. I don't know anything about it. There is such a thing as post-tenure review, but it's not meant for the use that the University of Florida apparently put to it. This is an August 7th piece, so it's not very old, but it was in circulation by the time we did our Florida higher education review on Friday. Subheader here reads, after the state required post-tenure reviews, roughly 1/5, 20% or so, of the UF professors evaluated in the first round were either found lacking, decided to leave, or chose to give up research and likely their tenure with it. At Florida State, by contrast, all professors somehow passed muster. So that's interesting, like both our state-sponsored, state-supported schools, right? What's the difference between the two of them? We'll see if these guys get to it, because if they don't, there's a possible answer out there. Ryan Quinn is the byline name on this piece, again from Inside Higher Ed. And luckily I have 4 out of 5 articles left. So let's go read this one. It's illustrated with a wacky photo montage that includes Meatball Ron. And it says, of course, underneath, by way of captioning, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and other Republicans have mandated post-tenure review at public institutions such as the University of Florida. So here's the deal. Post-tenure reviews aren't a new phenomenon in higher education. The American Association of University Professors has had a stance on them going back to 1983. And in 1999, it released a report stating that they should be, here's what you use them for, they should be for faculty development and not undertaken for the purpose of dismissal. Remember, these are post-tenure reviews. Like we all sort of commonly understand tenure as protection from dismissal. What point would there be in having a post-tenure review that could be used for kicking you out unless it was for serious misconduct? Right. Last year, Republican lawmakers in Florida passed a law requiring post-tenure reviews for professors at public universities, I guess just generally speaking. That wasn't unique. But, as with other policies, how administrators implement post-tenure review matters. And the board of the State University System of Florida determined that professors who receive the lowest review ranking, unsatisfactory, will receive a notice of termination. Now, the first round of post-tenure reviews has been completed, or rather, now they have been completed, not just, hey, by the way, they've been completed. And the flagship University of Florida's process produced a figure that has raised eyebrows among its faculty. About 1/5 of reviewed professors failed to pass muster or gave up defending their tenure. They'd rather just get the hell out of Dodge, which speaks volumes about the quality of education you're about to receive if you're an incoming freshman at University of Florida. There's no mincing words. Tenure's gone. It's been replaced by a 5-year contract, said Mira Sitharam, president of the United Faculty of Florida's United Faculty of Florida, Union's UF chapter. Okay, so the United Faculty of Florida represents professors both at UF and Florida State, and I'm sure elsewhere. New College, probably. She said UF's implementation of the policy really gives them a chance to get rid of people they don't like. That's what they're after. During a June Faculty Senate meeting, Provost J. Scott Angle, you can call him F. Scott Angle if you want. He told me I could call him either one, provided what he called preliminary numbers on the results of the reviews. Preliminary because then President, and here's the wink wink to the next story, then President Ben Sasse, the old, the Nebraska senator who left to go take over the University of Florida at Meatball Ron's behest. And he is Sass, right? Not Sassy. I never did straighten that out. But because then President Ben Sasse, a former Republican U.S. senator, could still change the scores professors received. That is, okay, just a reminder of the sentence here. During a June Faculty Senate meeting, Provost Angle provided what he called preliminary numbers. They were preliminary because they gave Ben Sasse the power to change the scores that professors received. Angle acknowledged that the process was rushed this year, but said, I think overall it was reasonably effective, or probably was reasonably effective. Why the rush? I'm not sure, but one of the things that we'll get to in the next segment is Ben Sasse wasn't long for the world as president of the University of Florida. Was he forced out by universal acclaim? No, but out nonetheless. So we really had to rush things because the guy we brought in to be the political hitman for Meatball Ron to destroy the University of Florida and the whole Florida university system has somewhere to be. I guess he's got an appointment, maybe a Valentine's Day dinner or something that he has to get to very quickly. Got to ruin it all as fast as possible. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I got to jump back to our story here, but along the way I was looking at the social media feeds. This true, very funny. Just happened to notice Sam, very-simple.com is the user address on Blue Sky. Pointing to, hey, Liz Dye, as a matter of fact. We were just reading Liz Dye a minute ago at, where was it? The story about Donald Trump suing the Justice Department and possibly settling with himself. I don't think I credited the outlet there. Was that above the law? I think so. But Liz Dye commenting on social media. This is going to leave a mark. It is the Harris-Walz campaign's commentary on Trump's interview with Elon Musk. The last comment that will leave a mark being self-obsessed rich guys who will sell out the middle class. I don't know which, both of them, I guess. And who cannot run a live stream in the year 2024. He's referring to Elon Musk, Trump, and Elon Musk himself. Can't run a live stream in the year 2024. Sam's comment here being, honestly, that last line, the white ladies for Harris managed to run a Zoom/YouTube or whatever they use with it with like 150,000 live participants. And these two buffoons couldn't manage to broadcast a one-to-one conversation properly on a platform that one of them owns. So, yeah, that I think leaves a bigger mark than the rest of it. So well done on that one, Sam. Now, back to, what were we doing? Ah, yes, right. The University of Florida destruction at the hands of Meatball Ron DeSantis of the Smurf Boots clan and Ben Sass, kamikaze hitman university president. We'll get to that part in a second. Where were we? Oh, yes, right. So, hey, the process was rushed, but we've done post-tenure reviews. All the numbers are preliminary because Ben Sass reserves the right to change them at his discretion later on. Engel, the provost, combined people who received the two lowest ratings, unsatisfactory and does not meet expectations. I mean, it's bad if you get rated that way, but I don't know why they're rating you that way. If it's like you're a critic of the Meatball Ron administration, that's not supposed to lead you to a low rating, but it does in Florida. But if you get one of the two lowest ratings, Engel, the provost, again, combined people who got those two ratings, which puts professors on a performance improvement plan, ordinarily, that can lead to their firing if they, I guess, don't comply. When he added those to the professors who quit amid the process or decided to teach full time, likely giving up tenure to do so, in total, that was about 21% of the 258 cases that we reviewed this year. So that seems like a high number. Does everybody understand, though? Professors who quit to teach full-time, well, that doesn't sound like much quitting. But, of course, what they mean is they're giving up research, and research is a necessary component of getting and retaining tenure, which is weird because you'd think, don't you want to hold on to the teachers who are going to teach all the time? Like they're giving all their time to the students. That's a remarkable thing to do. It's remarkable that that's considered a demotion, but research is important. Anyway, those cases were people, it's worth pointing out. It was the number of tenured faculty members up for review. As for the professors Engel mentioned who are moving to become full-time teachers, he said, it's my understanding that they would give up tenure. There's still some job security for our master teachers, obviously. He didn't provide the faculty senators a breakdown of how many people would be relinquishing tenure in this manner. The university did not grant an interview Tuesday with Engel or another administrator about those numbers, but it did provide a final July 1st report on the 2024 post-tenure review cycle that included numbers similar to what the provost had described. That report said that out of 262 professors up for review, 31 either retired, entered retirement agreements, or resigned during the review period. A further 34 didn't meet expectations, and 5 were dubbed unsatisfactory. Add these categories up, and it's 27%. That document doesn't say how many of those who quit during the preview period did so because they feared they'd be fired anyway, and it doesn't number the professors Engel mentioned as voluntarily giving up tenure to transition to full-time teaching roles, but it does suggest that post-tenure review will have a significant impact on UF's workforce, and UF's numbers are much higher than at other Florida public institutions. Florida State told Inside Higher Ed that it placed 0 in the unsatisfactory or does not meet expectations categories. And the independent Florida Alligator student newspaper at UF, I guess, reported only around 11% in these categories at the University of Central Florida. Oh, I see. Very good. 5% at Florida International University, 7% at the University of West Florida, 6% at the University of North Florida. There's all sorts of universities all over the place. Big state. I think the Alligator probably still the UF newspaper, the Gators, Florida Gators, right? So, okay, they did a survey of, it sounded weird like that the numbers were different, 11%, but that was at University of Central Florida. So the University of Florida, I guess, was it Gainesville, main campus, reported on all of these other universities and campuses and how they did. Though UF seems to be diverging from its fellow public institutions, and there's a reason for it, perhaps, it may be taking a cue from the state to get serious about post-tenure review. Ooh. Next up, embellished reviews is the name of the next section. Early last year, Florida Governor Meatball Ron DeSantis, announced legislation targeting tenure. Very intent on getting rid of tenure or limiting it, right? The most significant dead weight costs at universities is typically unproductive tenured faculty. DeSantis said, I doubt it, but there you have it. That's the claim. In May of that year, he signed the controversial Senate Bill 266 into law, along with banning Florida's public colleges and universities from spending state and federal dollars on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. But guess what it was okay to spend on? We'll get to that. The law required post-tenure reviews every 5 years and said that faculty tenure, firings, and other personnel decisions at public institutions can't be arbitrated. It used to be that they forced everyone into arbitration. You can't sue. Got to arbitrate. Now you can't arbitrate either. So the post-tenure review could lead to a professor's ouster, and the professor could no longer arbitrate that decision. But Sitharam, the union president, said the statewide board of governors went beyond the law, which was pretty generous to them, which, she noted, doesn't even use the word termination. And on top of that, she said, my university has embellished the board of governors regulations. Everybody that I know sees it as a destruction of the university, and everybody's scratching their head as to what the UF leadership is even trying to achieve, Sitharam says. One UF professor, Stephen Willis, is among the plaintiffs in a lawsuit filed July 30th against the State University's System of Florida Board and legislative leaders, seeking a judgment that the law requiring post-tenure review is unconstitutional. It's unclear, though, whether a victory would lead UF to drop its own policy. Willis said the post-tenure review doesn't provide for due process, saying he only gets 1 page to respond to what his dean says about his scholarship over the past 5 years, 1 to respond about his teaching, and 1 to respond about the service aspect of his job. That's ridiculous, he said. Willis said he's a Republican and a Christian who's had his face, I guess, eaten by leopards, who's the faculty advisor for UF's Christian Legal Society and its Federalist Society. Wow, I can't believe how juicy your face was. He supports DeSantis. Yargle wargle. And he's not opposed to post-tenure review, but it needed to be designed with due process so that people had a chance to be heard and a chance to defend themselves, Willis said, and we don't have that. Yum, yum. Your face is delicious. DeSantis has criticized woke professors, of course, cut off funding for DEI in public universities, and championed a conservative overhaul of New College in Florida, which, was turned to crap. In red Florida, left-leaning faculty members may feel they have more to fear if post-tenure review is used as a political tool. But conservative-leaning defenders of academic freedom have noted that tenure is a way to protect the jobs of conservative professors at liberal institutions. Willis said that if people are targeted, it's not going to start with professors on the left. Sure, why not? At the moment, nearly every college administration is dominated by the left, Willis said. In the short run, it's people on the right, Republicans and Christians, and we are rare. That's who's going to get targeted by the other Christians and Republicans who are running the post-review things somehow. Anyway, I don't really know. But he feels that he will surely be the victim in all of this. And guess what? Maybe we ought to hope so. Maybe that juicy, delicious face is just too tempting for the leopards to resist. Now, I mentioned that there were some other reasons to look askance at what was going on at University of Florida. This, something I saw early after the show yesterday, circulated, and it's kind of caught on. I hope a well-written piece as we read through it. From the Independent Florida Alligator, which I gather is the campus newspaper at the University of Florida. And guess what? There is a weird difference. Why was there so much being done? Why so aggressive in these post-tenure reviews? So much more aggressive than any other campus in the university system in Florida, whether it be the regional ones, Central Florida, North Florida, South Florida, East Florida, West Florida, what have you. Florida International University, New College, etc. SAS is the president at University of Florida, and that seems to be the difference. Let's read a little bit about Sass's spending spree. That's right, he's already left, former UF president channeled millions to GOP allies and secretive contracts. The former UF president tripled his office's spending compared to his predecessor. This reported by Garrett Shanley. Congratulations for making the big time on that one. Maybe this is the 15th time you've done it. I don't know. But I like this one. Basically, in case we don't get to all of it, long story short here, Sass is brought in as University of Florida president. Meatball Ron figures he's gonna, he can get a headliner for his big Let's Destroy Higher Education plan. And the lure here is you can more or less name your own salary, bring in whoever you want, name their salary, and we'll increase your office's budget at a time when, of course, you're coming in to say, I'm super conservative and we're going to clamp down on things. We're going to eliminate majors. We're going to get rid of the stupid initiatives. We're certainly killing DEI. We're going to get rid of all those little cushy perks for students that make them want to go here. And we're going to get down to the basics and teach a classical liberal arts education and hardcore, educational basics, etc., like stealing all the money and absconding with it. Because guess what? 17 months into the job, after doubling his predecessor's salary, tripling his budget, doubling the salaries of people who worked for him when he was a senator and not even moving them to Florida, just giving them jobs in Florida and letting them stay in D.C., doubling their salaries. And 17 months later, everybody has cashed the checks and they are out of there. Quick theft, emptied the vaults of the gold like Fort Knox and made their way out because he got named to an important sounding position, put on a suit, and as you know with Republicans, when the suiting starts, the looting starts. They took all the money they could stuff into their pockets in 17 months and left. In his 17-month stint as UF president, not U.S. president, I think that's what he thought was coming of it. I think I did see somebody theorize they thought maybe Meatball Ron would make it to the nomination and then win the presidency, and he would be the right-hand man, Secretary of Education, some kind of top job that he could loot the federal government. But, he was limited to looting the state government in his first go-round. In his 17-month stint as UF president, Ben Sass more than tripled his office's spending in a conservative manner, right? Directing millions in university funds into secretive consulting contracts with his buddies and high-paying positions for his GOP allies. I threw in the part about his friends, but it turns out to be true. Sass ballooned spending under the president's office to $17.3 million in his first year in office, and he only really did one full year in office, up from $5.6 million in former UF President Kent Fuchs's last year, F-U-C-H-S, Fuchs. In his last year as president, a $5.6 million budget. Sass's first year, $17.3 million. This according to publicly available administrative budget data. A majority of the spending surge was driven by lucrative contracts with big-name consulting firms and high-salaried remote positions for Sass's former U.S. Senate staff and Republican officials. One of the big complaints, of course, about all this, we're going to clean out the federal government with Schedule F because a lot of these lazy losers are staying at home. Those work-from-home crap just ain't going to fly with us unless, of course, it's okay if you're a Republican. Still works. Still true. So here's the details. Sass's consulting contracts have been kept largely under wraps, leaving the public in the dark about what the contracted firms did to earn their fees. The university also declined to clarify specific duties carried out by Sass's ex-Senate staff, several of whom were salaried as presidential advisors. The university said Sass's budget expansion went through the, quote, appropriate approval process, whatever that might be, but did not answer questions about how Sass bankrolled his splurges, where the funds originated, or who authorized the spending. Next section, keeping friends close. Amid protests over his conservative track record as Nebraska's Republican senator, remember, he was one of the moderates, one of the good ones, right? Sass promised during his ascension to the UF presidency in the fall of 2022 that he would divorce himself from partisan politics under what he called a vow of political celibacy. But actually, he's going to, visit a brothel in his political celibacy. But the senator turned university president quietly broke that promise. Oh, trombone? Yeah. Broke that promise during his 17-month term at the university's helm, hiring 6 ex-Senate staffers and 2 former Republican officials to high-paying remote jobs at the university. Not unusual in Florida. Chris Rufo didn't move to Florida to run New College. He just does it from wherever the hell he feels like doing it. Under Sass's administration, 2 of his former Senate staffers, Raymond Sass, it's actually spelled differently. I don't know that there's no relation, but it's spelled differently anyway, just no E on the end. Raymond Sass and James Wegman, like the supermarket but with 2 N's, were among the highest ranking and highest paid officials at UF. I'm sure not as high as the football coach, but, both worked remotely from the D.C. area, roughly 800 miles from UF's main campus in Gainesville. Sass, the one without the E, who is Sass's with the E's, his former Senate chief of staff, in case you were wondering about their relationship. He was UF's vice president for innovation and partnerships, which is a position that didn't exist under the previous administration. His starting salary at UF, $396,000, more than double the $181,677 that he made on Capitol Hill. Now, Capitol Hill positions are notoriously underpaid, although that's a pretty good paycheck there. But you can't be paid more than the senators you're working for. So capped at a mere $181,000. Too bad, right? So now you get to cash in. Most people would say almost $200,000 in salary. That's cashing in. Wegman, Sass's former Senate communications director, is UF's vice president of communications. They had that job previously. They didn't have to create that one. A position he works remotely, again, from his $725,000 home in Washington, D.C., and he's got expenses. He's got a $725,000 home, so he's got to have a big salary. And he does. He's salaried at $432,000. Wegman replaced Steve Orlando, appropriately named for a Florida guy, who made $270,000 a year, which is quite a good salary all by itself. But $270,000, not enough to lure Wegman to not move from his house in D.C. Imagine that you're replacing a guy who makes $270,000 a year. They allow you to do the job from D.C. Be remote. Go ahead. Don't worry about it. And you're like, no. I'm not doing it for less than $432,000. After all, I have moving expenses to consider, like me moving around my house to call you because I'm not coming to Florida. Wow. So, well, maybe he's just a big shot, and he really brings heavy hitters' capabilities to the job. Well, as it turns out, so did Steve Orlando. And maybe Wegman didn't at all, because, as we said, Wegman replaced Orlando, who made $270K in the position, and had nearly 30 years of experience in media relations at UF before he was demoted to be Wegman's deputy. So he may still be getting $270 or something thereabouts. But man, well, how do you get to a place where you get a $270,000 a year salary? Well, 30 years experience. How about Wegman? Well, not so much. The Alligator first reported on Wegman and Sass's appointments last October. But an additional 4 who followed Sass, the senator, from the Senate to the swamp, from the swamp to the swamp, one might say, have gone unnoticed by the press. How interesting. Sass appointed his former Senate press secretary, Taylor Sliva, S-L-I-V-A, unless that's a typo, as UF's assistant vice president of presidential communications and public affairs, a new position. Not the communications director, not vice president of communications, but vice president of presidential communications, a different position apparently, and worth a salary of $232,000. And it made Taylor Sliva the second highest paid employee in UF's Office of Strategic Communications and Marketing, trailing only Wegman, as a matter of fact. So that's, I guess, an answer to that, right? Steve Orlando used to make $270. Now Sliva, The second highest paid makes $232, so that means Orlando was demoted from 270 to below 232. Now, can't cry too much about that, but, it's an oddity, to say the least. The remaining 3 ex-Senate staffers, Raven Shirley, Kari Ritter, and Kalisha Rice, served as presidential advisors to Sass, though their specific duties remain unclear. Rice, Sass's Senate scheduler, is listed as a presidential advisor in UF's salary director, but in practice remained as Sass's scheduler. Why not just say that? According to her LinkedIn profile. Well, she says it anyway. Sass raised his former Senate staff's salaries at UF by an average of 44%. In this economy, 44% compared to their Capitol Hill pay, contributing to a $4.3 million increase in presidential salary expenses over Fuchs's last year in office. Outside of his Senate staff, Sass also tapped former Republican Tennessee Commissioner of Education Penny Schwinn as UF's inaugural vice president of pre-K to 12, and pre-bachelor's programs. PK to 12 program at the University of Florida. What's that? I don't even know. Schwinn, with a starting salary of $367,500, worked the newly created position from her $1 million home in Nashville, Tennessee. All these people don't want to give up their expensive homes. I understand. But you can't have the job. Additionally, Sass hired Alice James Burns, former scheduler for Lindsey Graham, as Director of Presidential Relations and Major Events. Burns, salaried at $205,000, also worked for UF outside of Florida. Seems weird. Citing his wife's recent epilepsy diagnosis, Sass abruptly resigned from his post in July, leaving the future of his UF inner circle unclear. We're meant to be restrained from criticizing his quick departure with having stolen all the money by his wife's diagnosis. Alleged diagnosis, I guess we have to say. I don't know. The university did not respond to questions about whether his political appointees were fired, non-renewed, or resigned following his departure. We don't know. Fuchs, who began as interim president on August 1st, kept a relatively small staff, less than 10, compared to Sass, who employed more than 30 in his office. Jet setting on UF's dime, unsurprisingly, the next section here. All but one of Sass's political appointees worked for UF outside of Florida and commuted to Gainesville if they ever even bothered to show up on the university's dollar when needed, a move reflected in his office's travel expenses. In Sass's first full fiscal year at the university's helm, travel expenses for the university president's office soared to $633,000, over 20 times higher than Fuchs's annual average of $28,000. Sass spent more on travel in his 17 months at UF than Fuchs's entire 8-year tenure. It is not unprecedented for UF employees to work outside of Florida, but out-of-state positions have typically been reserved for those representing the university as federal lobbyists in its Washington, D.C. office. It is virtually unprecedented for top UF officials and rank-and-file administrators to work outside of Florida. The university hasn't responded to requests for a complete log of Sass's travel expenses, leaving it unclear how much of his sky-high travel expenditures were spent shuttling his remote hires to campus. A partial report shows Sass spent over $20,000 between April 29th and July 29th to fly his employees to campus. Taylor Sleva, Sass's press secretary, was the only one of Sass's political hires to work in Florida. His employment contract, obtained from a public records request, included a $15,000 relocation stipend. He currently rents out a house in Gainesville. McKinsey comes to the swamp is the next section here. We'll see how much of it we can get through here before breaking for our last segment. When Sass took over UF in February of 2023, he knew he'd need a hand. His track record in higher education administration was limited to his 5-year presidency at Midland University, a small private liberal arts college in Fremont, Nebraska. At UF, which enrolls over 60,000 students and pulls in an annual $1 billion in research grants, Sass faced a steep learning curve. He turned to consultants for help. They always help, right? During his presidency, Sass spent $7.2 million in university funds to consultants for advice on his strategic planning and to fill leadership gaps, over 40 times more than Fuchs's total consulting expenses over his 8-year term. Again, 8 years, 17 months, 40 times more. Sass paid nearly 2/3 of the $7.2 million to McKinsey & Company, where he once worked as an advisor on an hourly contract. The firm carries prestige as one of the big three management consulting giants, but is notoriously secretive about its dealings and shielded its work from public view using records laws protecting trade secrets. A critical scope of work attachment, which would outline McKinsey's responsibilities to UF, was redacted from a copy of the contract obtained by a public records request. The redaction, permissible under state public records laws, makes it virtually impossible for the public to know what the firm did to earn its fees. And why would anybody want to know that? It's only public dollars, right? UF spokesman said McKinsey was using data analysis to help Sass build his strategic plan, but the university hasn't disclosed further details about its $4.7 million contract with the firm since the alligator first reported its existence last August. Public records requests for any reports, presentations, and data produced under the contract have yielded no responsive documents. Lots of money, no real answers, no reports so far that they were willing to acknowledge. Can't believe it. Oh, you Republicans. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Joan McCarter joins us as usual. Last week, extremely busy. There was an announcement of some kind from one of the campaigns. It was a vice presidential nomination. It was a big deal. Everybody had to scramble to cover it, and that must have been fun. What a good day. I mean, busy, yes, but it's been a long time since a frantic, busy day covering events on the front page, or just digesting the news in general. Has been good news. So that must have been something. Has been good,
and didn't happen on a weekend.
Oh, yeah, right. Like during standard working hours, which, even then, not really particularly standard for most people, but early in the morning for you. But it was just a nice thing. It wasn't, oh my God, we're being hit by some sort of destructive rumor that is garbage and we have to deal with it, or anyway. And I mean, it could have been, follow-up bad news. Like, they handled this transition beautifully in a way that energized everybody and, had all the appearance of legitimacy that you needed. Even though, by the way, the punditry was insisting, no, the only legitimate way would be total chaos and backstabbing. We should definitely have honest,
that.
Right. Oh?
Nancy Pelosi did not help in that.
No.
And I'm still kind of pissed at her about it.
Yeah. That was kind of odd. The whole thing was kind of odd. And, but I guess also, now that you mention it, I guess that's even more of a testament to the heretofore hidden talents of Harris and staff to face all of that down. The punditry, which wanted to tie knives to everyone's hands and have them circle fight somehow. And then Nancy Pelosi, didn't help coordinate this thing, which you'd think it went so well. Maybe you'd think she did, and she didn't. And not very many big name Democratic leaders. I don't know how they managed this in the face of this kind of opposition, except that, well, what you guys are advocating for is crazy, and what we're advocating for is good, normal, and helpful.
That makes sense. That is doable.
Yeah. But remember, this is politics in Washington. That could easily have flopped. Even though it makes sense and it's good for America. To hell with that. Let's have the chaos. Wow.
I am totally brainstorming here on this, but I wondered if there isn't a little bit of a generational thing. My mom has been having ongoing text messages with her 80-year-old sister.
Okay.
Who is really not excited by Kamala. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that she's a woman. And that they all went through this with Hillary. And that there's still this, for older women, thought, no way this can work. And I just wonder if it's not a generational female kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, you'd hope that, well, among women, they say, well, good, it's about time. But, yeah, there's certainly an age cohort which will say, well, we were just taught no, for one thing.
Yes. I mean, that's a huge part of it. Their entire lives are based in being told no.
Yeah.
And having to fight and losing those fights.
Yes.
So, and, 2016 is still seared on everybody's memories.
Right.
So
if you dared think, well, maybe the time is yes, you could easily, on a certain level, you could point back and say, we tried that. And they attacked us for it. But it's working out. It's a different person. The past that Hillary Clinton had isn't looming for Kamala Harris. It is a little bit later in the, a couple of years have passed. But, yeah, that's entirely possible.
And we have all experienced
generationally.
Trump.
Right.
And Trump is
that's true.
Decompensating before our very eyes. So.
Yes. And as much as I guess I can feel a bit for Hillary and saying, why did this happen to me? But I don't know. Now I'm sort of starting to classify her 2016 experience alongside the Biden decision to step aside, despite the fact, as we're now reminded, he was at the time negotiating a 17 country deal for the release of very politically sensitive prisoners held by the Russians. So, he was on it. And also I've been pointed to the Howard Stern interview with Joe Biden, which apparently also was very sort of revealing and insightful in terms of his acuity, and that has made a couple of people who've commented to me about it say it really was super unfair, the conclusion that everybody came to. And he still said, the country is on the verge of collapse if we don't win this election. And I think I can, but I guess other people just say no, and I just better get out of the way. Maybe Hillary is kind of thinking like, well, look, she served her role. She told us, look, as they did it on SNL, he will kill us all, right? She never said that, but then again, Sarah Palin never said she could see Russia from her house either. It's just kind of came to be.
And J.D. Vance doesn't have a relationship with a couch.
Right, sure. Oh, yeah, and we should classify it that way, too, now that we're being scolded. How dare you make a joke which is untrue? I think NBC, and we saw NBC, somebody putting that out under their banner. This is shameful, and Democrats should shy away from it. But that was the network that made everybody believe that Sarah Palin could see Russia from her house, and that was a joke, too. But... yeah, but, maybe Hillary's just sort of playing the role. Like, now you're the stateswoman that says, I told you so before anybody else told you so. And, it's too bad that I won't be the first woman president, but, we got to get there, and I'll help make it happen. And it'd be something if that was the legacy of Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton, to just say, all right, time for the next generation, even though Nancy Pelosi had done such an interesting job of it, transitioning to a new generation inside the House, and made a point of showing that that's what she was interested in doing. That must have been tougher for her than we thought at first, and maybe it didn't come naturally to her, and she was able to do it, or be forced into it, perhaps, by her caucus, and then they don't really have that kind of control over her in presidential endorsements. They've got no leverage over her now. She's not occupying a leadership position. Well, I guess they did create an advisory one for her and let her hang on to an office, but that doesn't count for much, I don't think. That is surprising, though. You know, right? We thought she had led the way in the House transition generationally, but it turns out it wasn't ready to do it on the presidential race. But eventually got on board, I guess.
Yeah.
That's good.
There's still bad blood there, I think. It'll be interesting to see what role she has in the convention next week.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, California, I mean, they're both big-time California politicos, and there's only so much room at the top, and the elbows will get sharp from time to time, so...
It happens in the best of parties.
Yeah.
It also happens in the worst of parties, which is a lot more fun.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that is kind of an interesting situation. I never really thought about it all that much, but, you know, California, you know, the 39 million and only 2 senators and all of that, that's an issue all by itself. But, yeah, if your Speaker of the House is from California, it calls into question exactly what is the hierarchy of Democratic leadership among federal officers in California. Does the Speaker of the House member won't rank as highly as a senator, but with the Speaker, this Speaker,
And there are always interdelegational spats and elbowing and difficulties and resentments. It's just, you know.
But usually senators win that versus the House. They just
usually they do, yes.
But when it's the Speaker, I guess you got an extra, you know, club in your hand. And all right, well, okay, never mind that. It's been settled. She's the nominee, and then
she's the nominee.
Tim Walz will be next.
And it's a lot more fun now than it was a month ago.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm glad that wasn't too much of a, you know, of a pain, and not a pain at all, I guess, to cover that. It was exciting, hard work, but at least it was good stuff. So,
and we're writing fun stuff. I mean,
that's nice.
Her lead in the polls.
Oh, yeah, that's exciting.
In battleground states. Very exciting.
Dramatic turnaround.
I mean, I'm very scared of hope. I'm terrified of hope.
Yes, well, you know, it has a certain audacity to it. But yeah, you know, no one wants to. Certainly, obviously, the advice is always never be complacent. Always fight like you're okay. This is a very dramatic turnaround, the sort that ordinarily doesn't happen. Polls, famously, for the past X number of years, have just remained more or less the same. Even when you substituted in generic Democrats, it didn't change much. But this is changing, and so you wonder what's going on.
And it's now been sustained.
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't a bounce.
Yeah. So far as, I mean, it's still only been a short while, but even if it was a bounce, we're about to have a convention where there'll be another bounce. There's a bounce on bounce. And then it's time for early voting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And also, all presidential campaigns should only be 3 months long.
Yeah, maybe this sets a good precedent here, too. The rest of the world manages just fine with a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
But we're the United States. We have to waste more money immediately. Yeah, that's true. And by the way, now I'm not thinking about it, that would be a sort of a great backdoor if you can't do it legislatively or in the courts. Like, is a shortened campaign enforced going forward somehow? I don't know how you would do it. A good backdoor.
Yeah, you'd have to upend the whole primary system, and that would be.
Yeah.
The states to agree to that?
Yes, historically a problem. But, well, anyway, first I was thinking it's a great backdoor to combating Citizens United. We can't seem to limit your spending, but we can limit the time in which you can spend. That's a possibility. Although, again, then they're just, I'm conducting a non-candidate campaign for 3 years in advance of the presidential run. So there is that. But the states thing, too, well, we'd have to compress the calendar, and you know how they are about that. What if we said, if everybody moves, New Hampshire, you can go first again, but it's in August of the presidential year.
It makes total sense. We need something to do in August.
Yeah. And
Congress is on recess.
Right.
Hello.
And when do the press want to go? When do they want to be in New Hampshire? Not January.
Not in January.
August. That's vacation. Oh, are you kidding? And everybody, all the important figures. You're all at Lake Winnipesaukee anyway, or Martha's Vineyard, whatever. You're a short helicopter flight. If you dare take a helicopter flight. You know how those things are falling out of the sky all the time. But yeah, a short trip to New Hampshire, campaigning up in New England in August would be fantastic. This is a win. I think we can do it. I don't. but I would like to see it.
But wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah. It would change your life.
Yes, it would.
That would be a good thing. Yeah, that's be interesting. Oh, by the way, speaking of changing your life, I did notice your headline. Maybe this is something we got to throw in there too. Or, among all the good news is your headline that when Congress comes back, the Freedom Caucus would like to blow it up.
Yes.
Okay. Well, for freedom, though.
Surprise!
Yeah. I can't believe it. What chaos could there possibly be in between now and, say, September 30th? Like, if I just pick a date out of a hat. You like that. That's a big date for you.
It's, there's, on the one side, I can sort of write these stories in my sleep. So, it's not too taxing.
Right.
But on the other, I would really enjoy not having to write these stories.
Right. You can do it in your sleep, but as a recurring nightmare. That's the downside of this. Freedom Caucus promises chaos when Congress returns next month. Because they're not there this month. The one
they're
we're all
not there
experiencing.
this month. They left, in fact, early by a week because of chaos and their inability to pass spending bills because the Freedom Caucus was saying boo. So they just packed it in early in July, took off, and the fighting will resume September 9th because you can't work that first week.
No, that's very important.
After your long August break,
sleepy week,
you need a full week to celebrate Labor Day.
Yes. Well, labor. Time to not work.
And yes, there is some work when they're in their district work period, but not in August.
No, not a whole lot. For serious members, even among Republicans, perhaps lots of meetings or, campaign-ish, picnic things for the end of summer. They have political events to go to, et cetera. Marjorie Taylor Greene has to make up something new about Jewish people taking over the country, and that takes a certain amount of time. Whatever it is, they got to come up with new rumors and things. By the way, I guess one of the biggest, between the recess and the relaunch of the Democratic campaign, it just struck me how little I've heard about Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz lately. It's terrific. They had their convention. They didn't make much of a splash there, and now nobody wants to talk about them. Have I missed something?
Surgery or whatever it was.
What happened?
On Matt Gaetz' part.
Matt Gaetz, what did he... Well,
you didn't see the eyebrows?
Oh. I did. I had forgotten about that. Was that his summer activity?
For Matt Gaetz.
Wow. Yeah. So what did he, is he bleeding horribly from a facelift? Is that what the idea was?
I have no idea what he did, but it was bizarre and fun.
Right. Okay. I did see that. I didn't. All the other news has kind of overshadowed that, but I guess ordinarily we'd be remembering that he looked ridiculous. All right. Well, yeah, I haven't seen much of them in the news the way we used to, and they'll be back when Congress is back in session. They'll make trouble
back,
there.
Yes, and they'll be fighting over government funding because that's what they do. The demands the Freedom Caucus sent to ruin everybody's August on Monday were a continuing resolution that goes into January. that goes into what they want to be a new Trump administration.
Okay.
So that 2025's budget is not Joe Biden's budget that he agreed to with Congress. They want to be able to cut all of this funding that they've already agreed to for the year and give next year, which starts at the end of September.
October 1st is the beginning of the new fiscal year.
To Donald Trump.
Okay. So
they also want to attach their, I think they call it the SAVE bill, that says non-citizens cannot vote in federal elections, which non-citizens already can't do in federal elections.
I mean, all right. So this is double secret. You're not allowed to vote.
Yes. But of course, they're probably even smart enough to realize that there already is law that says that and they don't need this, but
maybe
they're setting up the stop the steal, elections rigged, there's going to be huge fraud. They're starting that up early on and then putting it on the House floor.
Okay.
Because of course they are.
Right. Why not legislate it ahead of time? If they're not having fraud, let's just legislate that everybody will be required to believe there is, and we'll do something about it. And, of course, that, too, I think part of the play, everybody has kind of noted, the Trump campaign's happy and willing participation in all the crowds for Kamala Harris are AI generated is, again, part of it. Of course, no one supports her. So the fact that she won by, let's say, 12 million votes or so, and who knows what number in the Electoral College, all fake because no one voted for her. 0 votes, as a matter of fact. Oh, what about all the crowds? No, they were fake. AI, by the way, not how I would fake those crowds, but CGI I think would do just fine and probably better and have the right number of fingers. There's no AI involved. It's Photoshop. Everybody remembers that. That wasn't artificial intelligence. That was a person with a computer doing it. It was just as fake, but I guess AI is the hot ticket. So they say AI is doing it. But I guess that's to lay the groundwork for it must also be fraud. And that's why we're legislating to stop non-citizens from voting, because everybody knows millions of them did that too, which is not true, and they don't, and there's no way to vote, and you don't have you can't register. You can't.
No. And can you imagine somebody who is undocumented or who just has a green card putting their entire lives in the United States in jeopardy of jail, of deportation, of fines by showing up on election day?
Yeah, and just saying I should be allowed to vote.
I mean, yes, again, it's projection. Yes, Republicans will show up and try to vote twice. And
no, those guys I can imagine them doing it. Right.
To fraudulently vote. So they assume everybody
or to try,
is.
At the very least. Yeah, I mean, like one way you could do it is if you were, if you were the governor of Virginia's son, for instance, and you wanted to try to do that, that would be okay. You can't vote, but no problem for you. As Glenn Youngkin's 17-year-old son showed up in his election. I was told I could vote. I'm telling you can't. So, but sure enough, the system existed to catch him and say, no, you're not registered and you can't register. I'm sorry. And you know what? They'll do that to people who show up and say, well, are you a citizen? No. Well, then that's easy. I'm sorry it's not true that you can vote, but them's the breaks. And I'm not going to, and right. And the idea of, well, I came to America to build a better life and I should throw it all away.
Yeah.
Immediately.
I mean, these are people who are afraid to go get medical care if they're undocumented because they're concerned that they'll be caught into the system and deported.
They might be, yeah. And right. Yeah, I won't even get medical care, but, voting's important. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, they know what the rules are. Nobody understands the rules better than the people who are either trying to navigate the immigration system or the people who know that the rules are aligned against them no matter what happens, and I have to keep my head down because I either made my way into the country undocumented or whatever. Yeah, the one thing they don't want to jeopardize, the one thing they can't jeopardize. They're doing everything to make it in America that they can, whether through a documented process or otherwise. You're not going to risk it.
No, they are not going to risk it. So
we should legislate.
Yes, what the Freedom Caucus is calling for.
Okay.
What the House voted on, what the Republican House has been trying to do because of Donald Trump and his asking them to do it is complete and utter.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, that was nice of you. I think I got to move away from this idea that nobody says these words anymore. I think the reality of it is, okay, come on. There's certainly some of them you can even get by on television and all the streaming channels. Nobody's even watching television anymore. They're watching streaming shows. So they're used to it.
Well, except for the Olympics.
Right. Yeah, although then I saw some of the things on Peacock, the comedy, they did a comedy, like a late night comedy recap of the day's action, and it was, Kenan Thompson and Kevin Hart. Is it Hart?
Yes.
And they did a show, and I'm watching the NBC stuff all over the place, but it's happening on Peacock, and guess what? They don't care very much about that, and words that you never saw on NBC before were flying around, and to great comedic effect. I enjoyed it tremendously, and it made me think maybe we're being crazy here. We're streaming, they're streaming, right? So, anyway, I wouldn't worry about it too much, but I would worry about the possibility of seeing the government shut down by lunatics who still think that somehow Republicans benefit electorally when the government shuts down right before an election. I don't know where that comes from. It's been disproven 100 times, but they want to still do it. And the reason is to prevent people from voting who aren't even trying to vote because they know they're not supposed to.
Precisely.
Okay. Got it.
One of the things that I think, they only care about themselves. They only care about their policies. They only care about what they think. And they are fine in their districts. They don't have to worry about being reelected no matter what they do.
Yes, in many cases that is absolutely true.
So, sure, it doesn't hurt them to have these stupid fights. It doesn't hurt them to get rid of a speaker and have a month of fighting over who's going to be the next speaker.
Yeah.
Or shut the government down.
Or any number of dumb things.
So anyway, it means whatever happens, September is not going to be pleasant, nor is the lame duck.
Okay. Well,
it will be a little more pleasant if we have a trifecta sweep for Democrats.
That'd be awesome. No one ever dared hope for that until recently. So, now all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe not only can we, actually move into the lead and possibly win the presidency, but it was beyond hope. Well, you might be able to save the Biden presidency, but to what end? We'll never be able to, the trends are against us, and the trends are with us now. And can I ask, why are we boycotting Dunkin' Donuts? I was just scrolling. I think I missed this one. Republicans boycott everything. I love the choices they make. We're going to NASCAR, football, Budweiser, and Dunkin' Donuts. Chick-fil-A. They love
Oreos, Legos.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, Legos. I think I missed that one. I'm mad at them. I stepped on one of those ones. So, but I missed Dunkin' Donuts. Republicans are mad at Dunkin' Donuts because
they declined to advertise on Rumble.
Okay. Well, what's Rumble? I mean, we've heard of it, and is that their YouTube thing?
Yeah, it's their YouTube thing. It's sort of,
they've had a couple.
YouTube.
Sure. Okay. So, all right. So Dunkin' Donuts won't advertise on Nazi YouTube. So America runs on it, and they hate it. America also runs on Budweiser at certain hours of the day. And
Oreos. Yeah. And Doritos. And...
Man, they hate all the good stuff. They are weird. Isn't that something? They're weird and out of touch. And, my guess, I don't want to say too much, Tim Wall's probably, if not a Dunkin' fan, donut fan? Probably, yes, I would say. Yeah. Amazing how they are like, he's the weird one, we're the cool ones. We hate beer, football, NASCAR, and donuts, and coffee.
And Cracker Barrel.
And Cracker Barrel.
And Chick-fil-A.
Right. And certain brands of sneakers that are amazingly popular, et cetera, et cetera.
And we'll bash up our coffee makers, as John Kennedy tells us to.
That was the best, really. Yeah, I'm going to buy it and smash it for conservatism. Okay. Well, I had missed that one entirely, but I saw it in scrolling through your latest here. So, man, and also apparently Republican senators find a new way to shoot themselves in the foot, which, okay.
Candidates, not senators.
Candidates. Okay. Candidates are simply shooting themselves the old-fashioned way, or the incumbents aren't. Candidates are shooting themselves the new way. Okay. And I'm not certain what it is, but I want to read through it.
They're just not very good.
Oh. So that's okay. That seems like an old way.
He actually did shoot himself. Literally.
He did. Oh, he shot himself? Okay.
Yeah, in Montana.
Oh.
At Glacier National Park.
I didn't know that. Was that me,
you missed
actually?
That story?
Yeah, I know he shot someone else. He's still shooting? That's like, you're not supposed to let people drive after a certain time. But USA, baby. Guns, yes, absolutely. Go ahead. But I assume they said go out in the outside where no one will be around you. But he still shot himself. No, I missed it. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
You have to go back a few months.
Okay. Well, I will go back. How can I miss a gun fail like that? I don't know.
It's a good gun fail, yeah. And a very confusing gun fail.
Okay. I'm going to look through it.
That he's lied about a lot.
Okay. I will, or maybe I did remember and I blocked it out.
That's possible.
That's possible.
There's only
it?
So much you can hang on to.
Okay. Yeah, and of course, only so much time we have to reminisce about these things. Cool. We see you next week.
You will see me next week.
Okay, excellent. Good to have you back. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you again soon.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. Too short, I tell you.
In the morning with David Waldman.
That's Joan herself. She's the perfect height. I don't know. But anyway, too short of a visit, as always. But there's only so much you can get with folks on Pacific time. It's tough. We thank her every week that she gets up early to chat with us. Time now for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with the other West Coaster I can't believe wakes up this early every day, Justice Putnam. Stay tuned.